have with us Dr. Vinod Veedu, who is a senior nanotechnology engineer at Oceanit. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about Oceanit, how it started and what the company does.
Well, Oceanit is probably one of the largest R&D engineering company in Hawaii.
That's research and development, right?
Research and development.
Okay.
Actually, we just last week celebrated our 25th anniversary.
Wow.
And so we've been here for 25 years, and we are actually a very diversified company.
Mm-hmm.
The way we, explain ourselves, a simple way to explain would be we work on anything from sewer monitoring to missile defense and anything in between. So we cover a big, broad area. And specifically myself, I'm working there as a senior nanotechnology engineer.
Okay.
And I've been there for the last 4 years. And in the company as a whole, we have about 160 employees. And my specific area is on nanotechnology, focusing on developing products based on nanomaterials.
And what are nanomaterials?
So by definition, it goes from the manipulation of materials on a scale of 1 to 100 nanometers. So when we say 1 to 100 nanometers, it's actually, to give you a perception, our hair, if you take a strand of hair, it's about 100,000 nanometers in diameter. So manipulating the molecules and materials in that level and building up from bottom up, you make new products. And they have fascinating properties compared to the traditional top-down approach.
And aside from nanotechnology, you said that you did everything from missile defense to sewers. What are some of the other things that Oceanit is involved with?
We are involved in, from a company standpoint, we put ourselves into 4 different buckets. We would say aerospace, we are involved in aerospace and traditional engineering, civil engineering, and then healthcare related technologies, and then we are involved and then one big group of the company is IT. And the beauty is that actually, even though we make these different sectors, but the beauty is that the interdisciplinary aspect of all these different divisions of the company.
And that's sort of the uniting factor, right?
That brings up unique approaches to different problem solvings.
And what are the interdisciplinary aspects of problem solving?
For instance, I would say that we created a nano concrete recently in terms of the nanomaterials related work. We have a civil engineering group and we have a materials group, and from all those different aspects, we created a concrete that can sense, which hasn't happened before. So it's like, if you look at concrete, traditional concrete, it is a dump material. But on the other side, it's one of the most used material in the world, second only to water. And we wanted to have a revolutionary approach to the concrete. So this is the concrete, nano concrete, what we call. The beauty of this concrete is that it can sense. Once a person stands on it, it can give you a signal saying that there is someone standing on it.
How does that happen?
The secret is actually when we make the concrete, we add an additive, an admixture, which is based on nanomaterials. And during the concrete hydration process, the curing process, it forms a network on the concrete. And that acts like a molecular rebar. So if you apply a pressure on it, the volumetric resistivity changes. So we capture that signal and then interpret as a change in the strain.
And what is the nanomaterial? Is it something is it a metal that's mixed in with the concrete?
We make nanofibers, and then these fibers go into the admixture that goes into the concrete.
So to make concrete normally, one would just pour concrete mix and add it with water at a certain proportion, right?
Right.
And
but there are additives already going into concrete, like corrosion resistance additives or super plasticizers and stuff like that. So our objective is to bring up a unique aspect to concrete using our unique secret solution.
And how would this communicate then, this thing of concrete, and this does look and feel like ordinary concrete, right. Would this somehow communicate with a computer?
Yes, actually. So think about looking at the structural health, monitoring the health of a structure of let's say a bridge in California, and it allows you, this new technology allows you to monitor the health of that bridge sitting in Hawaii.
So, for example, if the bridge were cracking or under some undue amount of strain,
Right.
it would somehow send a signal to a computer in Hawaii or anywhere else
And
in
it
the
can be
world.
wirelessly monitored from anywhere.
That's fascinating.
And another thing that we are doing is fuel cells. So jumping from concrete to going to fuel cells. So this is actually a fuel cell that you can buy from the market these days, and this is pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And it gives you a power of 5 watts. But we came up with a unique processing, and that would give you the exact same amount of power, but you can see the significant difference. It's significantly lightweight.
Right. This is much lighter than this is.
Right, and that allows us to jump into a different topic here. If we can make it significantly lightweight and give the same amount of power, we actually were able to make it flexible.
Oh my goodness.
So as you can see, the fuel cell become flexible, and
Yeah.
that allows us to put it on different platforms, like unmanned platforms, like say UAV or robotic platforms and other things.
So this fuel cell then could be, because of its flexibility, why would, for example, something lightweight like this not be able to work on a robot?
It can work, but then it won't be a part of the structure. What we want to
Oh.
do is this flexible fuel cell, we wanted to put on a structure, and it becomes a part of the structure. So rather than carrying a separate payload, it becomes a part of a structure.
Ah, okay.
So that brings up to another product, which is an unmanned aircraft that you see here.
Huh.
This is actually was developed in collaboration with another company, local company, Williams Aerospace. There are a couple of things in this nanotechnology-based innovation on this platform. This is, as you can hold it, it's significantly lightweight.
Yeah.
And so what the secret of being lightweight is that there is nanocomposite materials that gives a strength to the
Okay.
structure. But at the same time, we can put a fuel cell
Oh,
on the structure, and it becomes a part of the structure,
you can hold that up so
Yeah.
everyone can see the fuel
become
cell.
part of
and
the structure, and it can fly.
That's fascinating.
So a combination of a number of things. So you can see that we work from, at least from the material side. If you look at the nanotechnology side, we work from concrete to energy side, fuel cells to composites to a varying amount of different products and technologies.
Now, how much power would this flexible fuel cell that we just looked at, how much power would this generate?
This is actually, it gives you about 5 watts of power. But so to drive to fly a UAV, you would need about 100 or 200 watts. So
Okay.
basically, what that means is that you need to make many of these fuel cells. So what that allows us is to spread on the wings.
Oh, okay.
So you can actually spread on the wings and use hydrogen as the fuel to drive it.
And are these particularly cost efficient to make now, or are you still in a stage where it's expensive to manufacture?
This is still in the R&D stage. This is in the research stage at this point. But what we think is that, again, when we look into all these technologies, we make sure that it's not cost prohibitive.
Okay.
And initially, obviously, it will be cost. There will be huge amount of money involved in it. So, for instance, I'll give you an idea. This nano concrete that we were talking about, this is actually probably the most price-sensitive material. Like very sensitive to the price, right? Concrete. So we get all these unique properties. So in this one, we get sensing. At the same
Okay.
time, we increase the durability of concrete.
Okay.
And so with all these properties, we don't expect it to go more than 5 to 8% in cost compared to a traditional concrete.
Interesting.
So that becomes a compelling innovation.
Absolutely, because it seems like the benefit far exceeds 5 to 8% cost
Right,
increase.
Exactly.
How is this concrete stronger than regular concrete?
When we jumped into this idea, actually, this came from Oceanit has a unique way of funding internally. There's something called Oceanit Innovation Fund.
Okay.
So any employee, the idea is that any employee can go to the management and ask for money if you have what we call crazy idea. And not that you get the money always, but if it is interesting enough, if it is what we call internally fun enough, then they will fund you. So Oceanit has internal funding that goes into it. So when I joined, I pitched this idea about making a concrete sensing. And I was given a small amount of money, not too much money, but a small amount of money. And we were able to show some of the interesting aspects. So coming back to your question about the strength, initially we thought strength is the key for concrete. But as we get into the details, the industry is looking for increased durability of concrete, because if you can get the strength by adjusting the water cement ratio and other things, but looking for the durability. But when I was talking about durability, you could think about concrete being very strong in compression, but it's very poor in tension.
Okay.
So increase that property, flexural properties of concrete, or tensile properties of concrete. At the same time, you bring corrosion resistance, because you use rebars in concrete.
So what you mean by tensile strength is the bendability of it as opposed to the load-bearing quality of the concrete.
Exactly. And then you bring the corrosion resistance to the concrete. You bring alkali-silica reaction resistance to the concrete. So there is all kinds of other issues that actually kills the durability of a concrete. So bring the durability at the same time, bring the sensing part.
Because concrete was one of the most innovative and important materials in construction in the 20th century.
Exactly. So
Like steel, right? It was a fundamental thing that allows us to build, high, tall buildings.
the interesting thing that I feel about concrete is it's actually breaking a rock into pieces, and you bring it back and then try to put it together, reassemble the concrete back into a rock. That's what we do, right? So
Right.
you take the gravel and then mix it with the sand and cement and everything, and then try to reassemble it. So that's what on concrete technology we do normally.
That's fascinating. So the basis of concrete is rock to begin with.
Exactly.
So and then it becomes rock again.
Yeah.
Have you put this in action yet? Have you had a buyer for this product, or someone who's willing to test it out?
We have a couple of customers who are interested. Some of the interesting, fascinating things that we have found that initially even though the drive was trying to do sensing and durability, the combination, actually the industry is driven by the durability, and there is the supply chain and everything, and we worked with, we are actually in discussion with a big company who is actually one of the biggest manufacturers of admixtures. And their drive was going into the durability of concrete. But I think there is unique market for the sensing properties. For instance, the railways. You want to find out how much load is on the cross ties and everything. So we are talking to different customers, definitely, to answer your question. And one thing also I want to point out is that if you look at the CO2 emission, the carbon dioxide emission, concrete contributes about 8 to 20% of the CO2 emission from the cement manufacturing process.
From the manufacturing process.
So the one concept that we call it as this qualifies as a green concrete as well. Why? Because when you increase the durability and the strength of the concrete, you can sort of reduce the amount of cement that you use in the concrete, or reduce the amount of concrete that you use.
Okay.
You don't have to pour a 12-inch. Maybe you can get away with 8-inch. So it significantly reduces the amount of concrete that we use. So that actually, in turn, translates into reduction of CO2 emission.
And the other stuff that's in the concrete is the nanomaterial?
Right, nanomaterial, and not that the cement or concrete industry, they don't really like to use less concrete for sure. They would love to sell more concrete.
Right.
So we are going into different aspects of concrete, and those are, I think, and we strongly believe that those all will contribute in terms of selling this technology.
The green element and the fact that it's able to actually communicate with technology.
And actually, Oceanit is seriously looking into focusing on developing this technology. That means it goes back to our getting into the business by spinning off new technologies.
Okay.
So there'll be a new company being formed, trying to just focus on developing this technology further.
It must feel terrific to have your brainchild sitting right in front of you.
Well, it's fun.
Yeah, it must be really, really amazing and worthwhile. Now, you explained how this idea came about from your just discussions with internally,
Exactly.
and a lot of ideas come from inside of Oceanit. Is that are the preponderance of products that you guys bring to market, are they mostly from inside the company?
Mostly from inside the company. So what happens is that one of the core of the company is called Science and Technology Group,
Okay.
which I belong to the same group, and we have about PhDs from many different areas.
And you yourself have a PhD,
Yeah, so-
you're Dr. V.
So we sit and discuss about, again, those fun and crazy ideas, and if it is fun enough, if it is crazy enough, then we go and find federal funding or any sort of funding. Department of Defense, NSF, National Institute of Health, any different funding agencies. And that would allow us to prove our technology. And that would take a year or 2 years. Once we prove that internally, once we know that it is going to work, then we go through the process of the phase 1 funding, phase 2 funding, and everything, and perfect our technology.
And what are phase 1 and phase 2 funding?
The phase 1 and phase 2 fundings basically means the phase 1 would give you a small amount of money, not more than $100,000 to do a lab type testing. And phase 2 would allow you to do almost like $1 million to perfect the technology a little bit more. Then you can clearly look at how big of a market is it and where you are in terms of technology. And if it is a big pain, what we call it, if it is a big pain, if it is big enough, then that allows you to go to private equity, raise the money from private equity and spin off the company. That's a typical procedure that we go through.
And that's usually the second stage after you get some sort of government or quasi-government funding, then you'll spin off and get some private equity involved.
Exactly. But for an inventor who is involved in this process, it's exciting because you get to see your baby going from the innovation stage throughout the whole process and becoming a product. And that becomes very exciting for anyone at Oceanit to do this kind of work. And we always say, it doesn't matter if you have a PhD or you don't have a PhD. All it matters is your innovative ideas, and those ideas become very valuable for the company. And again, to come back to your question about is it just internally? No, actually we're pretty open. We are like a university, but not focused on papers or anything. We're focused on products. But we actually, on this UAV, for instance, we collaborate with a local company. In the same way, I have actually 2 or 3 other projects that we have collaborated with other companies outside. And we collaborate with companies and locally and universities from the mainland as well.
Great. What do you see the future of your nanotechnology projects being over the next couple of years?
Definitely a leading product would be the nano concrete, what we give a sweet name, nanite. So
nice.
that would be our leader in going to a product in the near future. And definitely, the fuels energy area, it's really hot in these days. And energy area, we have a couple of products already in the making. And I don't say we have already perfected the technology, but it's still in the research and development stage. So as you can see, we are on the concrete side, energy side, and actually we have several technologies on coatings. For instance, anti-fouling coatings for the ships, or anti-corrosive coating for the ships and structures. That's still in the making also.
And I mean, obviously this piece of concrete is not particularly controversial, but I know that some nanotechnologies are controversial. Is that true?
Actually, it is in some sense. Many of these materials. So it's not what we use in the majority of our projects is carbon nanomaterials.
Okay.
But we use other nanomaterials as well. So in a broad picture, it is still under sort of scrutiny by different agencies. For instance, the FDA or EPA and other agencies, CDC. What they're trying to do is do a thorough analysis of these materials and their behavior in different scenarios. And are they going into water? And if it goes to water, what happens? And all kinds of other details. And I think last I heard about these details was FDA and EPA. They have actually a committee looking at all these details. And I think it's been going on for the last 6 months. I think where it would go, and down the line, some of these materials would be restricted, right. Definitely. Looking at the effect of these materials into the behavior in marine environment and other areas.
Because some of these materials are so small that they can be absorbed through your skin, like at a cellular level.
Right.
Correct?
As these are, as I said, these are in the nanometer level. So it could go and then it could potentially create some issues, but it depends on what sort of material it is, and is it engineered material or not. If it is engineered material, so for instance, I'll give you an example. So when we make this admixture, we make sure that these materials are tied into a polymeric system that it won't leave the surface. So even if it breaks apart, it would be breaking apart as larger structures, from micron-sized structures.
I see.
And then even if and it will never release as individual particles or individual tubes or fibers.
So if this gets pulverized, it's going to be, even if it looks fine to the naked eye, it's still going to be large particles that are going to be
Right.
unable to be absorbed by your
Exactly.
skin or
So
your
then the
lungs or-
question of being affected from a nanometer level, we can take that question from the, all this discussion. So definitely, and I think in this case, it's not for a company like Oceanit or any other companies to address individually. It is a broader question about the toxic effects of nanomaterials, and that's been discussed and that's been researched all around the world these days. And we make sure that we track that very well. At the same time, we contain our materials and then make sure that they are not toxic.
Because I think people also have a concern that, and it's a natural concern, that things you can't see somehow are giving information that you're not necessarily comfortable with. Because to the naked
Right.
eye, this looks like an ordinary piece of concrete, but
Right.
it actually is conveying information, which
I
is
think-
fascinating.
I think from a scientist standpoint, my interest would be, or my take on that would be, we learned how to deal with gas.
Mhm.
We learned how to deal with electricity.
Exactly.
So all it takes is to understand and bringing up protocols and procedures.
Mhm.
And those protocols and procedures have to be followed in terms of using these kinds of material. And the large efforts by the EPA or other agencies these days is to bring up and make sure that those protocols are in place,
Mhm.
and make sure everyone follows those protocols and procedures. For instance, at Oceanit, we have actually one of the best labs, I would call, in the Pacific region, I would say. We spend a lot of money, effort, and everything in building up the lab, and a big part of those efforts actually is focused on the safety.
Mm.
How do you handle these materials in a safe environment? So that's what we are focused, and that's actually a big push, and to get those things done.
What are the labs like? When a product goes into testing at your labs, what happens?
In terms of the basic research, you mean?
Yeah, or the procedure that you follow.
So we have, there are actually these things are not new, but there are
Mhm.
so many classes of these labs, in
Mhm.
terms of what sort of particles you can use and
Mhm.
everything. So we have built a separate section of the lab where you can deal with this particle in the particle state.
Oh, okay.
And then you have all the safety concerns
Mhm.
around it. And we have put enormous amount of effort and money in building up all those things.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
That's terrific. So, tell us a little bit more, since we were talking about the labs, about how the labs fit into the general structure of the company, and what your team-based approach is like.
It is very interesting because, and then it goes back to the interdisciplinary aspects of, or we don't believe in boundaries at
Mhm.
Oceanit. So if you break those boundaries, for instance, the lab has a big part of the lab is on the material side, and the other big part is biology.
Okay.
So we actually have two separate sections of the lab, but many research projects, they work together. So for instance, we made a nano biosensor, and actually it is detecting molecules around the area, and so I'm saying that so this unique aspect of the company, in the big picture, the company has this diversified thinking. At the same time, we have this interdisciplinary aspects. That is there even in the lab.
Fascinating. So it seems like it's a culture that really emphasizes thinking above where your specific
Exactly.
miniature discipline is.
Right.
Do you think that Hawaii has any role in how Oceanit has set up its collaborative structure? Do you think that there's anything about the company that's indicative of the culture here in town or on the islands?
It's very interesting because when I joined Oceanit, and I had some offers from the mainland companies, and Ian Kitajima, the marketing director of Oceanit, he said, you should come and join Oceanit. Not that we pay a lot of money, but it's fun to work at Oceanit. And one big part of the whole thing was I did my PhD at the University of Hawaii.
Okay.
And having been here for about 3-4 years doing the PhD, then I learned that this is a great place to live.
Mm-hmm. True.
And it's a great place to live, and also people talk to each other without any, you can just call up anyone, and then, it's just very smooth to work with each other.
Exactly.
And that brings to these kinds of collaborations. For instance, we work with all these companies. We are free to actually go and talk to them and then exchange ideas and things like that. And I think it has to do with the aloha or the Hawaiian culture that
Right.
you can interact freely and act like a ohana.
Right, exactly. And it seems that a lot of the Ohana culture at Oceanit is reflected in some of the civil engineering type things that
True.
you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Civil engineering work actually, Diane actually, he actually runs our civil engineering group. Um, we actually, even from our side, there is lots of excitement how to, have that interdisciplinary aspect into the material science as well. And we were talking about, extracting energy from ocean.
Right, right.
And our CEO and the vice president of civil engineering, engineering group, he's also from the ocean engineering side.
Interesting.
So we were discussing about how we can combine material science with their side of things, and then combine these things, and then coming up with new innovative products. And specifically on the civil engineering, we are focused on coastal environmental kind of work.
Okay.
And in that part, it's not too much on the R&D side, research and development side. In that we are focused on the traditional civil engineering side. We are actually even we do even EIS kind of studies, environmental impacts studies and things. So we do have the traditional engineering side. We do have the crazy thinking side too.
That's terrific. That's terrific. And it seems that a lot of the civil engineering projects, again, have a very visible impact in the community. For
Exactly.
example, out on Maui, are you doing something with marshland on Maui?
We are actually, we are not only in Maui, Hawaii, everywhere. We are actually pretty much, we have actually an office in Maui.
Okay.
And an office in Kauai as well.
Terrific. So maybe you could explain a little bit about the Dr. V show and tell me a bit about what that is and why you do it.
Yeah, 2 years ago, people used to call me Vinod or Dr. Veedu or whatever, and all of a sudden it changed to Dr. V now. And for a long time, I had this hard time adjusting to Dr. V, but now I think it's easy, it's simple, straightforward, and people love to call me Dr. V. So it actually in the big picture, it comes back to Oceanit's commitment and a strong belief that we can build a sustainable tech community in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And that commitment, actually, if you believe so, then you need to invest on it.
Right.
So what do you invest in building a tech community in Hawaii or industry in Hawaii? Well, you have to go back to the Keikis because the next generation is depending on them.
Correct.
And we believe it so strongly, and then we are here for the last 25 years. So we have seen it for the last 25 years. So what would happen going forward next 25 or the 50 years? So we decided to strongly involve in science and education in society. And I myself, when I joined, I have a strong interest in popularizing science. We can talk about all the chemistry equations or mathematics equations and stuff like that, but that actually it gets people excited, but not many people.
Right, right.
So we wanted to package these kinds of thinking and the science into a popular version so that we can get at least kids excited, next generation, and then they get excited. And that translates into a long-term sustainable industry in Hawaii.
In Hawaii, like starting, it seems like that's something that our legislature might want to think about, which is education is extremely important
Exactly.
in terms of furthering technology and an industry and getting, in fact, Hawaii away from just a tourist-based industry and into something like science and technology.
Exactly. So in doing that, I myself, we used to go to, and Cindy Matsuki, who's sitting here, she's not on the TV, but she's actually she actually takes 99% of the credit. She should take 99% of the credit for the Dr. V show and things. So I used to go to the schools to tell you a story about how we came to the show.
Yeah.
I used to go to schools on Saturdays and Sundays, and whenever I could, and help kids about their projects, or they might be going on a competition to the mainland or whatever. So we support them. And seeing this excitement, and I was talking to Ian Kitajima, again, marketing director of Oceanit, and so I was talking to him, and I said we should have a show or something like that to translate our exciting ideas and into popular science. So after 2 weeks, I'm on the show actually. So he called the studio.
That's wonderful.
So it was 2 years ago. It was the KGMB studio,
Mm-hmm.
and after the merger, now the show is shown on Hawaii News Now,
Okay.
and it's every Tuesday at 6:40.
Okay.
And we've been doing it for 2 years.
That's
and
terrific.
We went through about 100 experiments already.
Amazing. And do you know how many viewers you have, or?
Last I heard, I think we have more than 40,000 viewers, and
Wow.
I think it was before the merger of the channels.
Do
and
people stop you on the street and
They do actually.
That's
and
terrific.
especially kids. And initially, we were actually, the excitement was going for to show kids about and excite kids about science, but looking at the feedback from doing this for 2 years, what I figure out now, there are a lot of people that they missed the fun of science,
Mhm.
and they watch these exciting things on the TV, and they get excited. And a couple of months ago, I was at a function in one of the schools here, and there was a lady. I think she's about 84 years or something. So she told me about her age and
Mhm.
what. So she said she tries to do each and every experiment at home.
Oh dear.
I said she should be careful. But,
Yeah.
but she said that one important thing that she said, it's important that, because she said she helps her grandkids to do these shows and
Okay.
do these experiments. And so I think the show is actually exciting people from different areas, youngsters and old people and kids and everyone alike.
And are the experiments simple enough, do you feel, to allow families to do them together, or do you think that maybe they should kind of read the directions before
Most of the experiments are, and actually this is where Cindy has the hardest time, because
Right.
I'm a science guy, right?
Mhm.
So I get to do crazy science experiments.
Right.
But she keeps saying that you have to make sure that you have to focus on the safety side, because
Right.
that is very important. So on the show, what we do is, if it is a light show, that means
Mhm.
that you can do it at home.
Right.
We let it go. But if it is chemical experiments or
Right.
fire-related experiments, we make sure that we point out the safety side,
Good.
over
Mhm.
and again. And for instance, if coming to the excitement side, if you talk to the kids and then say, okay, now we are going to learn about the chemistry between potassium iodide and hydrogen peroxide,
Mm.
they would sleep.
Right.
Right? It's just so hard. But we actually did some experiments where you mix this exact same thing and then you get some incredible outcome.
Right.
And
Right.
so the point is that once kids see those things and then get excited, then they would be curious. Kids are really brilliant, you don't have to. So then they get excited. Then you get a platform where you can start teaching them the chemistry, so the mathematics or physics or whatever.
The reason why it happened, because I certainly know when I was a youngster, I was mostly interested in the explosion that might happen as opposed to the science behind it. But when I learned the science behind it, it was really quite fascinating.
Exactly.
Do you want to do an experiment for us here?
Oh, we can do an experiment. So
For the first time at ThinkTech Hawaii, we're going to have a live science experiment.
So for instance, if you talk to kids about making vortex, and then
Okay.
you try to teach them vortex, or
Mhm.
or you try to teach them saying that, okay, air also takes space.
Okay.
It's hard to perceive that air takes space, and especially when you're a kid. So we say that, okay, we can do an experiment. It's a simple experiment.
Let me move some of these other
Yeah. So
items off so we can see the experiment here.
So we came up with this fun experiment. This is actually any container. You take the container and then cut the one side off, make
Okay.
a small hole on the other side,
Okay.
and you wrap around a plastic on the other side, on the open side, and then make
It's
it.
like saran wrap or something.
Yeah, and then
on
wrap
top.
it around. So you fill this. So I'm saying that I can push air out of this.
Okay.
Okay, if I'm tapping on the back side, gentle, you'll get air coming out. So, but you can't see it, right?
Right.
So, you won't get excited on this one. So what we said was we can fill smoke inside.
Okay.
So I have a smoke maker.
Okay.
So I have to hold it for
Okay.
5 seconds or 10 seconds, and I'm going to fill it up with the smoke.
Okay.
So you can see the smoke coming inside.
Okay.
So
Oh yeah.
and once you have the smoke inside, if I push on the other side, in a gentle way, you can see the smoke coming out. But So I'm going to push it.
Oh,
You see,
wow.
you see what is coming out? It is actually called a vortex.
Okay.
And so and you can teach kids that the vortex is coming out and the pressure in the middle is less and then the speed of air is high on the middle. Then you can talk about what is in a vortex and all go into all the details. So the whole experiment takes only maybe $5 or $10.
Okay, wow.
So you can see the smoke rings coming out.
Huh.
And if you're crazy enough, you can do a big smoke ring.
Right.
The big container.
That's terrific. Great, thank you. When you were younger, was this your first exposure to science? Was through simple experiments like this?
No, actually not. That's one of the things I was talking about because when I was growing up, and I'm actually from India.
Okay.
I really don't know if it is an Indian thing, but when you're a scientist, you have this thick glass and
Right.
long beard
Right,
and
right.
everything. So it is hard to even come closer to you.
Right.
Everything is scary, just
Yeah.
thick glass and everything. So always it was in the back of my mind that it has to change, because you have to really work with the society.
Mhm.
If my take is that if I can't explain my grandmother on nanotechnology, then it doesn't make any sense because eventually it has to come to get to people.
Right, it's eventually going to become consumer-based, and someone's going to want to consume it and use it. And if
Right.
they are afraid of it or don't understand it, like we were talking about, they just don't want to get involved.
Exactly. So that's why we were like, we were so focused, and I was always under this impression that this has to change, and science has to be packaged in some way, and now we are on the Dr. V show.
That's terrific. And so you're once a week, you said?
We are once a week, every Tuesday at 6:40, and actually the studio KGMB and now Hawaii News Now, they actually were very supportive, and I should thank them. And without them, this show wouldn't exist.
Excellent.
And it is actually we have to go there about 5:30 or 6 o'clock every Tuesday, and so but we enjoy it.
Right. It's a little probably a rough start, but it's
The
probably
show
very
actually is
rewarding.
only 3 or 5 minutes maximum,
Mhm.
but after the show, the kids can go online and find out all the details.
Oh, great.
So hawaiinewsnow.com, you can go to the website and then go through the Sunrise program. You can see a tab on the show is called actually Weird Science with Dr. V.
Okay.
So it is weird.
Yeah.
So kids can go, and then we have a write up there. What materials do you need, and what you need to do, and all those things. So they can do these experiments later as well.
Do you have an all-time most popular experiment?
We do actually. So unfortunately, I can't do this here.
Yeah.
This is an explosion of ethanol.
Oh, wow.
And that's a fun experiments in the lab. And it has to. The safety is a big concern when you do that experiment. So you have to really know what's going to happen.
Be very careful.
Right.
So are any of the other employees at Oceanit involved with education or community outreach?
So the show, the Dr. V show, it's just a small part of what we do for the community outreach. We have actually, Cindy actually, she goes to schools and teach kids about how to make telescopes.
Okay.
And what is involved. And you can buy the telescope for like $15, but actually she teaches you how to put it together. So and then we were actually in last couple of months we were involved in the Furlough Friday. The state is going through the Furlough Friday days. So we have done couple of events at actually experiments, 5 or 6 of experiments in different malls. And actually there is one we committed that we will be doing again. I think it's organized by HSTC, Hawaii Science and Technology. So we will be at a couple of Furlough Fridays more.
Excellent, excellent.
So basically what we do is we get kids come there and then do some science experiment, and then we go through all the details about what is involved in that experiment as well.
So that they can, again, if they want to do it at home, but at least what you're doing is you're getting a stronger base for people in Hawaii to follow technology paths and maybe stay here, maybe go to the University of Hawaii and get a PhD.
Exactly, yeah.
What did you get your PhD in?
My PhD is in material science and mechanical engineering, a combination.
And so the material science is related to the nanotechnology?
Nanotechnology side and the mechanical on composite materials.
So what do you think about having a Dr. V show for adults?
Actually, that's a great idea. As I said before, there's lots of people that they think that they missed the whole fun of science
Right.
when they were growing up. So during our 25th anniversary last week, we were actually showing some of the science experiments. And I was the Dr. V actually. So I had to stand there and then do these experiments on that day. So one of these our invited guests came to me, and then she was saying, like, she was actually shouting, "Where were you when I was growing up?"
Yeah.
So we do think that would make an impact, and actually I'm committed to do those kinds of things if you organize.
Absolutely. We should have it here on ThinkTech Hawaii, maybe.
Actually, maybe ThinkTech Hawaii can sponsor it.
Sponsor
Jay
it, right?
can sponsor
Right?
those things.
Exactly. Wait, was there a moment in your education or in your development where science really got you, where you really felt this is what you wanted to do?
That is actually an important question, because when I finished my undergraduate degree in India,
Mhm.
and I got a job in the Middle East, and I went to the Middle East, and I was
Mhm.
working there for 1 year. Then I actually really wanted to come back to science, and
Mhm.
really wanted to add this. It's not. I wouldn't call myself as a born scientist or whoever, but
Right.
the passion to do something important,
Mhm.
that got me back to this research. So I came to Florida Atlantic University to do my master's, and then I did my PhD at UH.
Mhm.
So during all these times, I wanted to create something that makes sense. It has science in it, and it has a value to it.
Mhm.
And that's what is exactly we are doing at Oceanit.
Mhm.
So you create something, and someone pays for it.
Right.
So that means that it makes sense for them. So that when you see, I think the biggest excitement, one is the science in the lab, obviously, but the other part is that your product that you created become on the shelf of somewhere,
Right.
in a shop, and someone pays for it.
Right, exactly. And I think that so many people have that disconnect between particles
True.
and something that they can actually use. There's no kind of understanding or integration that
Right.
science. I mean, it's obvious with technologies like computer technologies,
True.
as our computers get smaller and faster, but
Right.
things like concrete, you're driving over a bridge and you don't necessarily think about how vital and essential and commonly used this is, and how something as established as concrete can
Right.
be improved even further.
And think about the impact on the society. For instance, let's pick on the concrete technology. What happened in Minnesota when the bridge collapsed? And
exactly what I was
then
thinking about.
the sad part of things, like the socio economical impact on the society.
Right.
I think that become significantly large, and you can never recover from most of them, and life being lost.
Right.
So I think, so you go through the whole spectrum of building something in the lab, going through the testing process, then you sell it to a customer, and the customer is happy about it.
Mhm.
I think that's the excitement. And once you're at Oceanit, it's an interesting place where you spend 2 or 3 or 4 years, then you go through the entire process,
Mhm.
and you get excited throughout the way.
That's terrific. What other products that you've worked on aside from concrete
Mhm.
have you seen go to market that have had that kind of impact?
I would say whatever the technology that you're working, especially the R&D efforts that we are focused at Oceanit, we are looking at really, really hard pain. And so that means that you have to invest 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
And so I would say that in the last 4 years, we came up with all these things. And in the next couple of years, we are thoroughly focused on marketing these technologies and
I see.
making products out of it. And it's not about, so normally when we explain what we do at Oceanit, when we say that we pick on the pain or the problems when everyone else steps back.
I see.
So we embrace those kinds of problems. And the strength in embracing those kinds of problems are, we have PhDs or expertise in many different areas. And so it's a contained within Oceanit, all these different areas and expertise. So to get back to your question, I'm actually focusing on developing these products going forward.
I see. So in other words, the pain process being the I guess the aggravation of marketing it and taking it that step further out of the lab and into the
Right.
community.
Right. The pain process, maybe you can attribute even to the degree of pain, because it's not easy to make a concrete sensing.
Right. Right.
So the degree of pain, and sometimes you are ahead of the market.
Okay.
Sometimes you're behind
I see.
of the curve. So you have to be really, time all these things, and when you launch it and how you launch it, those things are important. Especially on this concrete technology, we think we are sharp on time because, especially because so many reports say the nations, especially focused in U.S., nations' infrastructure is heavily scrutinized these days.
Absolutely.
So the bridges and then other structures are going through evaluation.
Absolutely.
And
And
they
the
don't-
president's initiatives right now, he's been addressing this quite a
Right.
bit.
So it seems like we are right on target. So we think it'll happen pretty soon.
And so the market for this is ready.
Market is ready.
Okay. And is the concrete ready?
We are ready too.
Oh, you're ready too. Terrific.
So that's why I'm saying like this seems to be more on time, perfect situation for us.
That's excellent. So when someone is going to use this concrete in infrastructure, one thing that is a little still mysterious to me is how that talks to a computer. Where is the sensor in it?
Okay, so what we do is actually, so if I can bring
Absolutely.
so
We'll grab this from here.
for a regular concrete, this is actually regular concrete.
Okay.
And the nanite, what we
Nanite.
call.
Okay.
So what we do is we apply a load on it. You have an electrode coming out.
Okay.
So from this electrode, using this electrode, you can measure the change in signal.
Oh, okay.
So capture that data and then wirelessly transmit that data.
I see.
So that becomes easier process.
And this is only, you said, about 8% more expensive than plain old boring
Plain old-
concrete.
Yeah, boring concrete, and I would say. But there are actually methods where you can look at the cracks inside this concrete.
Mhm.
There are X-rays. You
Okay.
can do X-rays, but the beauty about having a structure by itself, looking for its failure
Mhm.
or pain, is that it's like us. We
Mhm.
can say, oh, okay, I have a pain here, and we
Right.
can feel it. We have a nervous system internally.
Right, right.
And this works best. And in terms of concrete, if it can say there is a crack, and it's
I
going to
see.
collapse, so we can say before it collapses, we can evacuate people.
I see. As opposed to on a random chance
Right.
happening to X-ray a piece of concrete and noticing the crack. This will tell you as the crack is forming, bit by bit, it'll be communicating with you.
For instance, for a scientist, for a material scientist, when you say there's a crack in the concrete, when you look at it, it's a big enough crack already.
Mhm.
But for a material scientist, the crack starts when two molecules go apart.
Okay.
So if you want to prevent a crack,
Mhm.
you have to act in that molecular region.
Okay.
And that is only possible using nanomaterials or nanotechnology.
Okay.
So that's the importance of this thing.
Explain that again. Is it that this will somehow be able to repair the crack?
Right. So there are actually, when the cracks happen, these cracks actually, so let's say there is a crack going through, it'll just fly through the concrete.
Okay.
And that's how the concrete collapses at some point. So in this case, there are actually very minute, in at actually nanometer level fibers in it
Mm-hmm.
that would actually bridge those cracks. So it won't collapse catastrophically. So instead of collapsing in 1 year, it might extend the life to 5 years or 10 years.
It almost heals itself.
It almost heals itself.
That's amazing.
And actually, that's called self-healing. And one we are doing right now is self-sensing.
Mhm.
And we are actually working on the self-healing part now.
Amazing. And the fibrous material will somehow bridge that.
The crack. And actually, if you look at, there are actually technologies. If you look at the bulk picture, the broad picture of this, the scale of this of concrete in general, you have rebar in it.
Right.
Right. I mean, but that's the rebar in the bulk scale,
Right.
not in the nanometer scale.
Right.
So we are having molecular rebars in the nanometer scale.
I see that it's
that.
almost like an analogy. I see what
Right.
you're saying. That the big pieces of metal that get stuck in
Exactly.
concrete. This is happening at
Shrink it down to a nanometer level, and
nanometer
then
level.
have those kinds of things.
Amazing. What other applications do you think nanotechnology is going to have in the products that you're working on right now?
We are working on an interesting thing, and I actually, I'm sorry, I forgot to bring that. It's called a gecko-based robot.
Okay.
So if you look at the geckos, and especially in Hawaii, it's a
Mhm.
place for geckos, and these
They're
are
all over our house. Yeah.
So these lizards, if you look at them, you can, if you watch them going over the ceiling or
Mhm.
wherever, it's interesting thing because they have actually fibers, the very fine hair-like structures
Okay.
under their foot.
Huh.
And you won't see it, but you have to see it under a microscope. So when you look under a microscope, these fine hairs actually makes a weak force with the ceiling.
That's how they stick.
Yeah, that's how they stick. And the gecko, the interesting fact is the gecko normally uses only 4 or 10% of its 4 to 10% of its actual efficiency.
Okay.
So it's not using all its, the effect.
Mhm.
So if it uses that much effect, it can carry hundreds of kilograms.
You're kidding.
Yeah. So so mimicking that, so learning from nature and then mimicking that in the lab, what we are trying to do is synthetically make those fibers. And there are so many universities doing it. There are so many companies doing it. But the unique the feature about our technology is that we can take those hairs, synthetically grown hairs, mimicking the gecko, put it on a robotic platform, and then let the robot, walk around, and it can actually do surveillance.
Huh.
So you put a camera on it, and it can go and then and actually you can stream videos, and you can see what's happening on the other side. So that becomes like a big surveillance applications or defense-related application, or even for earthquakes and stuff. When you have collapses and stuff, so you can go around and look what's happening.
I see. So the robot isn't just confined to the ground. It can climb up walls and go on ceilings.
It can go to any way you want. So we're doing that kind of research as well.
That's incredible, and possibly you can develop something so I can hang on the ceiling.
Exactly.
That would be quite
So
surprising.
you could be Superman.
Right, it's something just out of a Tom Cruise movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Incredible. And so, do you oftentimes get product ideas from nature?
Not really, but there is a close relation between nanotechnology and then trying to look into what's happening in nature, because then there is a limitation where, so if you look at if you look at where our traditional technology is top down.
Right.
If you look at nature, you get incredible ideas about bottom up. I started from a cell,
Mhm.
or my basic ingredient, or my basic where I came from is one cell, and it became like these trillions of cells, and I became who I am.
Right.
And so learning those kinds of approaches, you can build structures and build incredible structures from bottom-up approach.
I see. The way that nature executes the process is
Right.
the inspiration.
We're working on, to give you another example, we are working on looking at lotus leaf. If you put a drop of water on the leaf of a lotus, you
Mhm.
will see it just rolling around and it just slip off.
Yeah.
So we are working on technologies where we can, some point down the line, I'll bring you a shirt
Hmm.
where you can throw water in it and then you can just shake it off.
Amazing.
Or dust-free clothes.
Huh.
So you can mimic those. So again, there are fine structures on the top surface of the leaf that helps them to do those kinds of activities. So we can mimic the same kind of structures using nanotechnology and then do the exact same thing.
How do you see the structure? Is it through like a powerful microscope?
Powerful
or?
microscope. So
Mhm.
we have a microscope that we bought in the last 2 years ago, which can actually magnify up to 800,000 times of what you see. So to go back to the gecko thing, if we can make that material of size of this sheet
Mhm.
of paper, A4 size sheet paper, you can actually hang a car onto that much of material.
Amazing.
So you can stick it on the wall and hang your car there.
Amazing.
So it is powerful. When you look at nature, it's very powerful. And then if you can try to mimic, and if you're at least 50% successful, you come up with incredible product.
How long do you think before we'll see this gecko material?
There are actually, it's in different stages in different research organizations, and
Mhm.
some of them are way ahead of others. But the applications are different.
Mhm.
And same material, you can use it as a heat sink for laptops.
Okay.
Because when you keep your laptops on your lap, I don't think you can survive more than 2-3 hours or 2
Right.
hours.
It's
Even
very
in
hot.
half an hour, it gets really hot.
Yeah.
So to dissipate that heat really faster,
Mhm.
this similar technology can be applied. So there are different ways that people are looking into it. Applications in electronics versus fabrics versus
Mhm.
robotic platforms and stuff. So they are in different areas and different stages of development.
Amazing. Amazing. So with a technology, for example, like this, how long did it take for this to get from your brain to this stage?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, this stage 3 years. But again, then it goes through. So what I see is that now the baby can sort of walk.
Mhm.
You know, it just manages to walk. Now you need to teach them how to stand on themselves and go
Mhm.
through this education process and everything. So that takes enormous time. And that takes, depending upon, again, going back to the pain, depending upon how big of a pain are you addressing, it takes, I would say, anywhere from 1 to 10 years. But if it is a big pain, the payoff is big too. So,
What do you see for the future at Oceanit? What do you think is going to be happening?
well, Oceanit is growing, and you know, I talked about the last 25 years, and we are growing at a tremendous pace, and every day is fun at Oceanit. And again, what excites me is that the interdisciplinary aspects and things like that. To give you an idea about how fast we are growing, we are actually looking at hiring about 30 more employees.
Wow.
In the next, and we have to fill those 30 positions in the next couple of months.
Terrific. Well, how can people get in touch with you?
They can, I would strongly encourage the viewers to go to www.oceanit.com, and you can find all the details in the career section. So strongly encourage people to go there and apply for positions.
Sounds terrific.
And
Well,
they can be in material science, all kinds of areas, program managers and civil engineers and everything.
or work with you.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a terrific place to work, and it sounds like an amazing company to follow and to keep up with. Thank you so much, Dr. V, for coming to the show. I really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
It's great
Hope
to
to
be
talk
here.
to you
Thanks.
soon.